Hey, what's up, guys? It's Mad Games GX here, and we are joined by the one and only Prophecy Wiz. How's it going, my brother?
What's going on, dude? How we doing? It's been a while, huh?
It's been a while. It's been a while. So we're here to do a probably weekly podcast for Yu-Gi-Oh, and my man Prophecy Wiz here has been grinding regionals basically every weekend on the World's Point grind for the new season, and I'm also doing my own grind for trying to do a remote regional every weekend to just get better at the game. So I feel like this is going to be a fun podcast to kind of just go over our weekends, kind of how our events went, and just like what we learned about the meta, and just like discussion points of just like news that comes out and all that fun stuff. So it's going to be a great like honestly a great podcast. Like if you don't know Wiz, he's just one of the best players I know personally, and just is so innovative with the rogue decks, and he's currently playing Blue Eyes. So I just it's always, I felt like we always had great discussions like offline. So I feel like having an outlet to actually like put that out there for people will definitely just be a great thing. So yeah, how's it going? And let people know where they can check you out. I do have your socials linked out, but
Yeah, for sure. So you guys can check me out at ProphecyWiz on YouTube, ProphecyWiz_ on Twitch. Like Chris said, I've been playing the Blue Eyes deck. I've been doing the World's Points regional grind. I believe I'm in first place right now. I have 90 points, World's Points in about the first 3.5, 4 weeks of the season. So super strong start. I haven't played any events and missed getting points with the Blue Eyes deck. And yeah, I've been getting just super strong results with it. I think the deck is played really well. It's by far the best deck. I genuinely don't even think any of the other decks are like a second best. I think it's just like a tier above everything else. I think people just think it's bad because a lot of like newer players or returning players tend to play it. So they get that taste with it. But like he said, I think this is going to be an awesome podcast for us. We always can just talk for like hours about Yu-Gi-Oh! And always have great discussions. And I think this is going to be like a really good time for it because, we're going to be in the fray of playing events. Like I've been playing 2 regionals every single weekend. And I plan on doing the same every single weekend of the year that there is either a YCS or 2 regionals. I'll be playing minimum YCS or 2 regionals, and just being like in the midst of the actual events rather than just like looking at looking at what's happening online, I think is a big help. It's how I got good at the game in the first place years ago, and I think that it's just helped me to like continue performing and hopefully continue performing better and better every week.
yeah, man, definitely looking forward to it. And I think we can just go straight into our weekends, honestly, because you've been killing it out here, and then I also did participate in my first regional of this season with branded Draco Tale, which is the deck that I've been on and personally been very huge fan of ever since I touched the Draco Tale cards, like found them like 4 months ago. And like when the Malulu came out, I was like, oh, now I can use branded and actually find success. And we can
Mm-hmm.
talk about that and the other decks too. But let's just start off with you, Wiz. So like, how has the meta been treating you now with Justice Hunters coming here with like Yummy, K9, obviously VS being upgraded, and then also Draco Tale, and then all the other K9 variants that are kind of sprawling around. We just saw K9 Crystron get top 4 at the latest YCS. So like, how has the meta been treating you? Do you like the meta? And like also talk to me about your events.
Yeah, so I actually think the meta is way better in the new Justice format, Justice Hunters, because I think that the Justice Hunters decks are just way worse than. I actually don't think Mouse is that good. I mean, objectively, like it has good results, like the deck's fine, but I was not a huge fan of how direly I felt like the Mitsu Raziel deck was. I felt like if they opened really strong and won the die roll, it was very difficult to stop them. Like if they opened prayers and a discard with like a Raziel name, it was really hard to stop the deck from playing, no matter what combination of hand traps I drew. I feel like people think that that deck's more bricky than some of the newer decks, and I think it's just like the shiny new toy syndrome. So people are playing the new decks which is fine by me because I feel like even if they open good, I can just beat those decks every time I go first and second, which has been really helpful. I do think the new decks are they're good as well, but I've really enjoyed the new format because people playing the new decks is I just think the new decks are like a lot more reasonable than what Mitsu Raziel was. And queuing into Mouse is also fine. I mean, I hope to queue into Mouse as much as possible at tournaments, truthfully, even without preparing my side deck really for it. So I went to the Maryland Regional on Saturday. It's about a 6-hour drive both ways. Every regional I've actually went to, I went to completely by myself. So it's 12 hours of driving on Saturday. And so it actually ended up being more rounds than I thought, which is great because it was 12 hours of driving, which isn't too bad, but it was not a little bit of driving, you know what I'm saying? Not a 3-hour drive. So it was nice. It was 9 rounds and it ended up being 48 invites,
Wow,
which
that's a big regional, right?
yeah, it was a
Maryland.
ton. It was awesome because usually regionals is way less than that.
Yeah.
So that was super exciting. Um, I had a decent start to the day. There was so I did like change up my side deck quite a bit. This is like one of the nice things about anybody who's like regional grinding or just grinding events on a consistent basis, like a real consistent basis, is that like from week to week you really get to not just see what you see other people playing like through regional results, but like you actually being there and having your own experiences changes sometimes how you look at things and how you decide to deck build. So like for example, the weekend before in the remote regional that I played, I realized that there was just like way more board breakers. Like I realized that there was 2 separate times where I set a Solemn Strike and got Harpy's Feather Dustered.
Yeah.
I think I still won at least one of them, but it was like a notable thing that was like stuck in my mind that I was like, wow. And like one of the games, my opponent had Dark Roller and Feather Duster, and that was just like continued to be something that I noticed. And there was a lot more drop wood in the main deck. So for the next set of regionals, I decided to go towards more cards. Like I played 2 Dragon's Mind with additional copies of Drill Beam in the side, and I thought that that was like a good strategy because now it seems like people are playing more half board breakers and half hand traps. People aren't completely giving up on hand traps, and they're not full sailing either way. They're doing about 50-50. But what that means is they'll never stop you from doing a combo. Even if they hand trap you on like a slightly lesser combo, you're still ending with like a very respectable combo. And it allows you to assure that when you draw those kind of cards, they're always going to resolve. Um, and that was like definitely super helpful on Saturday for me. Like those cards were super broken. Like I definitely won multiple games where I went first after siding, and because I had those and my opponent was playing breakers, I was winning those games. Where had they been like Solemn Strike, I very potentially could have lost those games. So I thought that that was really notable. I ended up starting 6-1-1 and then lost the last round. Unfortunately, I just lost the die roll to Yummy, and they opened Obedience School game 1 and 3. There's part of me that feels like maybe I could have played better in game 3 to have still pulled off a win, but I didn't. So I ended up getting 19 Worlds points on
Yeah.
Saturday, which is still pretty respectable, honestly. I mean, 19 Worlds points is still nothing to scoff at. So that was pretty good. My opponent who beat me in the last round ended up taking 8th. I was unfortunate around like table 5 last round, but I
Yeah.
still just had to stay happy about the world's points that I did receive. Realize that it's towards the end goal, and 19 points is still pretty good. And just drive home, decide what I wanted to change for the remote regional, based on what I had seen. So for the last 6 weeks, I've played the exact same main deck card for card. Nothing has changed in my main deck.
That's so crazy when you told me that for the first time. Like you are like you find a build and you just stick with it, which I really respect. That's how you get used to your deck.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the back of your hand.
Yeah, it's and like if it's not broke, don't fix it. Like I've always like believed in that, and like once I honed in on like what I thought was just like the perfect main deck, I have just like stuck with that. If anything ever came up, obviously like I'm not like opposed to changing, but I feel super strongly that the main deck I'm playing is just absolutely perfect, and that if you're playing Blue Eyes, those are the 40 cards you should be playing. I've played like almost the exact same main deck as well. I've played for the last 6 weeks. I changed one card in my extra deck from this weekend on Saturday, and then I ironically went back on Sunday to what I was playing before.
Oh wow.
So I decided that like I was doing with my one card combos because like I had to adjust the way I played my combos to play around Azuna, which is like sometimes why I think people don't do as well with decks is like before Justice Hunters was even released, a week before those cards even came out to the TCG, I played in a case tournament, and the night before I stayed up all night. I slept 0 seconds, and I stayed up and I went through every one card combo and spent like 6 to 8 hours sitting by myself silently, not with music on, just sitting with the one card combos and going through and saying, if I play this way, what happens when they have Azuna? Because that was something that was going to be like meta warping. If I know someone Sage here and I search, I'm not turning on Azuna yet. I can go to link 1, and now I activate Maiden here, and I have the link 1 in this. If I dump with the field spell before I Maiden, what happens with Azuna? If I dump afterwards, what happens when they Azuna? If I summon back and now they Azuna, what happens? And I went through every single possible scenario that could happen, whether or not it was likely or not. Like, even if I was like, here's the best time to Azuna, I went through and said, if they take the monster at any single one of these points, with no exception in the entire combo, whether or not it's the absolute end, the middle, the very beginning, or anywhere in between, what would happen if they Azuna it, and how does that affect my gameplay? And do I find this now to still be a winning game state? And I did that with every single combo in the entire deck. And then moved on to the 2 card combos is like, what is the best way to play around these cards while still playing around all of the cards that I was attempting to beat before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like sometimes the work that everybody doesn't want to do because it's not specifically the most fun thing always to do. It's just work, but it ended up paying off really well. I topped that case tournament the first weekend, and I've just gotten better and better with that.
Yeah.
What it came down to is you essentially need to search the spell card instead of the trap card now. So I was going into the Blazar combo turn 0, and so I realized that I was summoning a Seals and a Spirit in my opening combo when I searched the spell, and I realized if I played a second copy of Tyrant Dragon, I could keep a copy of Tyrant in my extra deck, and if I was searching the spell card, I could summon the Tyrant in the first combo and summon double copies of Spirit Dragon on turn 0 with any of the 1-card combos, while also still having a separate interruption and keeping a Tyrant in my extra deck. And even though I didn't have the equip card, I would still be able to banish the spell card that was already in the graveyard at the next turn and then fusion summon. So that was like a combo that I was going with over the beginning of the weekend. And then towards the end of Saturday, I decided that I think I like the Seals play just better because people are now playing Droplet. Hermetic Seals just plays a lot safer into Droplet. It plays not only better into Nib, but better into Droplet, which made me end up going back to the 3rd copy of the Link 1 in the same exact extra deck.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So kind of a lot of nitty gritty stuff. Just little stuff, but ended up being like very important things for the like how the tournaments end up playing out, like making those decisions and then like driving home for 6 hours and thinking like, oh, how did I feel about this? Well, I did get nibbed once and it kind of slammed me. What would have happened if I wouldn't have gotten nibbed? Like, well, I didn't trigger this yet. Like, if I didn't get nibbed, I would have summoned a barrel from deck, went to the link 1, never used that effect, so I would have summoned back Blue Eyes, additional normal summon the Valor, still end on Spirit. Spirit's been a really big deal because it stops the canines from summoning from hand. It also stops Obedience School and stops the Yummy Synchros from summoning to in the from the graveyard. And
Oh yeah, that's kind of crazy.
that ended up being like a really big deal. It also ended up being a big deal that when I decided I was going back to the Hermetic Seal combo, that I made the decision that I'm still going to banish the first copy of Wishes to equip to the Blue Eyes and then send it into a Seals and then summon a Spirit and Seals, because I think it plays better around Nib and Droplet and still allows me to summon a Spirit if I get nibbed, and then if I don't, it allows me to play like insanely into Droplet, and the Seals is insane right now into like a lot of the best decks. But the Neos in the graveyard actually has been a really big deal because a lot of the times your opponent is going to go normal summon the Yummy Monster, go into the link 1 for the field spell, and then summon back the Yummy Monster, and then send the 2 of them into the synchro that Book of Moons, and then they activate the Book of Moons synchro targeting the spirit. And if you have the equip the Neos in the graveyard, you can banish the Neos to negate that effect. They will then chain spirit to summon back from the graveyard, but they can only summon one monster. So oftentimes they'll summon back the level 1 Yummy monster that attempts to target your monster to pop, and then you could chain your spirit, summon the ultimate that's an Omni negate, and now like they have to have extenders in their hand, and then you have the ultimate into an extender. Where if you don't have that line, it's actually way worse. I realized on Saturday, because if your opponent targets the spirit to Book a Moon and you don't have the negate in the graveyard, you have to chain the spirit, and then they chain the synchro to summon both guys from the graveyard. You summon the ultimate, they activate the guy in the graveyard to target the ultimate. You have to use the ultimate, and now they just have a link and the one, and they go into the synchro monster to summon two from the graveyard and just get clipped.
I just
Um,
want to pin that because that's actually a really good way to kind of like figure out the niches of your deck. Like when you're like, that's a really important, I think, like way to learn your deck, where you're just like, oh, what could I have done better? And then also I don't know, that was just like that was like a really good like representation of just like a perfect example of just like what you should be doing to figure out the best way, because there's always just like going to be better lines into certain meta decks as it is. And so just like figuring out these interactions, like that's what the beginning of the format's for. But that's just like, as someone like I play branded, like, and for the people who are watching this who also play branded, or just like one trick a deck, for instance, like those are the things you need to be thinking about and using that kind of critical thinking in order to get ahead of the meta and not just be just listening to someone else's opinion saying, oh, Blue Eyes is bad, but my man Wiz has topped back-to-back weekends, top aided back-to-back weekends with the deck after like this deck has also just performed at the last Nats and won German Nats. It's just like, it's one of those things you just, that so I just wanted to pin that, but yeah, no, I'll let you continue.
Yeah, I definitely think that's like it's like you said, like not that specific line. I mean, that line is important, but like it's important to just like look for those things rather than like if you notice, like I always feel like games are just winnable. Like I feel like people should look like I understand that everybody's like probably just gonna be like, well, I always look for the line to win, of course. But I think it's much better to like really internalize like how did these situations played out and like could I have played them out better? Like I spend like a lot of time thinking about those things and just like how I could have played better and like really put the mass majority. And I know we've talked about that many times before, and we've talked about it on YouTube and all those things. How that's just super super important to look at what you could have done better, because I feel like there really is always lines. Like I I played the Sunday regional. I top aided on Sunday the remote regional, which is nice. I felt like definitely one of the loss I took, I could have won. Um, I definitely just wasn't super happy with my gameplay in that match. It's not like it was like horrendous, but it could have been better, and I think that I could have just played my interactions a little bit smarter to have won. Nonetheless, I got 17 points, so I think I had 35 points total from uh, from the weekend, which was pretty good. 17. Yeah, I got 35 points total throughout the weekend from the two of them. I think it was 19, 17. Pretty exactly what the spread was, but um, 35 points, pretty strong weekend, all things considered. And yeah, I mean, it was pretty good. There was some takeaways that I had on Sunday as well. So ended up going back to the same site, Extra Deck, on Sunday, and then realized that there was an interaction. So like that's kind of like the week by week thing. Like why it's really helpful. Like another one of those like special interaction points that was like a really big deal was like my side deck, because I side the side frames into everything. I realized that like I don't actually need as many going second cards because I main deck 18 hand traps, and I side the frames into every single one of the top 10 decks, all of them, which puts me to 22 hand traps. So I decided that I was actually able to go a little bit heavier on the going first cards, because I thought that playing the additional second and third copies of Drill Beam were really nice to have on Saturday because of how good they played into the Draco Tale deck. When they activated the Femena in hand and then summoned the I think Ethereon, the bounce guy, being able to drill beam it, negate and banish, and not let them recycle their resources was usually crazy because oftentimes they would just send one Draco Tail monster from hand and then set something but lose out on that effect. And that felt like sometimes it just ended the game on the spot because they would use 3 cards from their hand.
Yeah.
And that interaction was so good on Saturday. It came up multiple times that I ended up and like game one, I searched not barrel, but searched the drill beam to play smarter into it because I knew that the guy was playing Draco Tale because he sat next to me the round before. And so I decided like if he like my hand's really strong, if he has 5 mana, like I'll just slam him with this drill beam instead of being greedy with the barrel and setting a drill beam. And it ended up working exactly like that. And then it worked in a different match in a game 2 that I just hard opened drill beam because I sided into the second and third copies. That was so good on Saturday that I decided to play both of those and then also play a Called by the Grave. Because I play 6 chummy, so I always wanted to make sure I had 6 good cards for going first every time I went first. I side the 3 Judgment, the 1 Primite Scream, and then the 2 copies of the Dragon's Mind, always going first. Because I played the Primite Scream, the other 2 Drill Beams were really good because if I played 10 cards that were Primites, it made it really good. Like when I would open 2 of them, because I would always have like a good second card to go into. Like I would have like either drill beam or scream. Like even if I opened like load barrel, like it happened once that I like barreled for a drill beam, and then my opponent activates Fua. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I activate the load, search out the scream, activate barrel, send himself from the field to dump a Blue Eyes from the deck, activate the load to summon that Blue Eyes from the graveyard to give my opponent no draws from Fua, and then I have the Scream that's going to negate and banish his normal or special summon, and the Drill Beam that's going to trade his extender. So like that alongside of like a single interruption outside of that in my hand, which I obviously had because I was going first, just like ended the game on the spot, gave no draws off Fua and just won.
Blue Eyes is like the best Fua deck. Like I play so much Master Duel and that it, like Maxie's there. It's crazy. It feels like in the formats where like Blue Eyes is really prevalent, it feels like Fualos is absolutely useless. It's actually just not that. I mean, like maybe it's better on your own turn for the spirits at that point because if you can just if you open up Primite, you just have so much interruption. I really like the way you played too with like sending the ether to go off the load because sometimes I don't even see Blue Eyes players doing that. So those are just like the little things you could be doing to be playing more optimally into those.
Yeah, all 3 people read the barrel when I activated his effective dump. Like I think people like understand that it has an effect. I think it's just like people don't realize to do it in practice as much as like it potentially should be. Like instead of giving my opponent 2 draws, like why are we not just dumping? Especially when we had the additional Primites. The reason that was just like really important was because the drill beams were really good on Saturday. So I played an additional copy of Called by the Grave on Sunday because I was always siding in the 6 going first cards, also the drill beams because they were just insane into like Azuna and 5 mana, and then just additionally it's you're just hard drawing an Omni Negate if your opponent doesn't have those into board breaker format. Which like ended up just being insane. So I played the additional Called by the Grave because I thought it was also good for those. One big takeaway that you probably will not even see in my like upcoming deck profile, so it's gonna be like a huge thing for anybody watching the podcast, is a decision that I decided I'm going to make moving forward that I think is actually like a game-breaking thing for Blue Eyes, is to play 2 copies of the Link 1 instead of 3 and play Lightstorm Dragon.
Yeah, that card's great.
I never thought that it was needed into back row decks because I think this deck's so good into back row decks, and like it just never came up in like niche situations like people allege it did. But there's one interaction that absolutely does come up that I think is just like if you have it in your extra deck is game breaking and wins immediately. Is that if you're playing like the 3 drill beam after siding, I realized that my opponent would never like I would always equip the Neos to the Blue Eyes before I summon Spirit. The reason for that is if my opponent has 5 mana, and I know they're playing Draco Tale by game like 2 and 3 when I have the second and third drill beam in my deck, if I equip the Neos there, one of 2 things is going to happen. They are either going to go like activate the 5 mana and then go chainlink one a thing in graveyard, chainlink to the Ethereon, but they can't really target they can't target my spirit, or I'll negate and destroy the Ethereon, and that won't recycle anything and will not bounce my thing. Or they will activate chainlink one Ethereon, chainlink to a graveyard effect, and then I will negate the graveyard effect with the spirit. Even if they have two graveyard effects, it still is going to trade with one of them for completely free because then stab spirit next turn. So like neither of those interactions feel great for them. So oftentimes when I have like a blue eyes and a level 1 in the field is when they're going to try to start like resolving the Fimena, in which case I can then use the drill beam to trade into the Ethereon. And even if they have the best case scenario, which did come up over the weekend, that my opponent would have two Draco Tale monsters with it, and I would negate and banish with the drill beam, but then they would set both Draco Tale spells. They would only be top decking into a third card for turn, but they would then have like the searching spell that also can fusion summon, and then the fusion, the brain fusion. And that was like a really strong start for them because they have like both of their best cards set, and then they also have 3 cards in hand.
Yeah.
And I realized that if I played the Lightstorm Dragon, I can drill beam the Ethereon, send my 2 monsters into Spirit Dragon, immediately activate Spirit Dragon to tag out into Lightstorm Dragon. Lightstorm Dragon will pop both copies of the spells, so it'll remove both spells,
Oh, that's
and
so
then
good.
it will die at the end phase, and it sets any spell trap, including Drill Beam. So it just dies and resets Drill Beam at the end
Oh
phase,
my
which
gosh.
just
Yeah.
like immediately ends the game because they just like use all of their good cards, and they now are top decking into a third card. You only traded really one card. You traded just your Drill Beam, right? You were already setting up spirits, and like your 1 card combo sets up multiple spirits. So like you then set up like another ultimate spirit on their turn, and then a Drill Beam, and like you have had the True Light set, so it just summons the Blue Eyes in the draw phase, and like now the Drill Beam is live, and like because you need a normal monster, but like for obviously for Drill Beam and for the effect of resetting it, but you'll then have the Blue Eyes, and then you'll also have another Omni Negate. So like they have 2 cards into your like 2 Omni Negates and like 1,000 cards of follow up and like all the other cards that you had, which just ends the game immediately. Like the game as soon if you play Lightstorm in that situation, which does come up, you just win on the spot. And I had thought about that after the regional on Sunday, so that's something I'll be doing moving forward.
Yeah,
So really
that's
good
like,
weekend.
oh, sorry, what?
No, you go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's like the best application of Lightstorm Dragon I've ever heard. So definitely something like we're getting the hidden tips and tricks for Blue Eyes here, honestly. Like, and once again, that's kind of just like how you take these like decks that are not exactly like the top 3, you know, in practice, you know, everyone thinks that Yummy, Dracotail, and these other decks are the top 3 decks, where other decks still have a lot of like staying power, and Blue Eyes is certainly one of them.
Yeah.
And
Like I could sit here for 8 hours and talk about those kind of combos. Obviously, I'm not going to. That's not the point of the it's not a Blue Eyes podcast. But that kind of stuff, like just giving those few examples, I think is like should kind of show everybody, like not just like, oh, here's cool lines you can play with Blue Eyes, but like you can find those lines with your own deck, like whether or not you're like no matter what you're playing. That's the kind of thing that like you should be really internalizing and like finding like the little things. Like there are hundreds of those kind of little things and interactions that like are not just memorizations, but like you just like find them out and figure them out over time. So I like playing decks for a while. So it's I hope that like that kind of can help, if not help people exactly with the Blue Eyes deck, like help inspire people to like really dig a little bit deeper when you're playing your own deck, and like figure out like if you really enjoy a deck, like you can figure out making it the best. So I had a really eventful weekend. I thought it was good. I think it pushed me into first place in World's Points. It's my goal for this year. Is I don't want to just make the playoffs. I want to play first place. And yeah, some audacious goals for this year, but super excited for that. And you said you played your first regional this weekend of the season. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so I was in the same remote regional. I saw you. You were just like hovering around the top tables, and after round 1, I was kind of just like always around table 30, basically going back and forth with ties, wins, and losses. But yeah, no, I brought branded Draco Tale, and you know that's been the deck I've been testing for the last like basically month on stream. I started to play like DB before Justice Hunters came out because that was like the only place you could actually test the new decks, and that was like I just decided to stay on the platform after that. Like I just think it's the only like simulator that actually like you know simulates the every aspect of paper card, or at least most aspects of the paper card game, like between the social aspect and then just like the pace of play, and just also getting like a good crop of just players generally, and things like that. So I've been playing DB ranked with branded Draco Tale, trying out different permutations of the deck, trying to see what runs best, because I saw initially a few months ago the OCG was doing branded Draco Tale in a few different forms, and I ended up testing with a lot of different people beforehand, just top branded players, just trying to lab out the deck and see what the best formula is. And I'm here like a few weeks into Justice Hunters, and honestly, I'm still I'm not the deck is so new, and also putting two engines together always just increases the variables essentially. So it's one of those things I'm still figuring out. So I ended up playing like a list the last 2 weeks that was very heavy on the Dracotail cards, because my theory was on that is that they're just they're just better cards than the branded cards, generally speaking, at least card economy wise, whether it's like Impermon Lucius being better than Impermon Aluber because you can just fuse off the Lucius with like a poly, or just whether you have like another extension like Aluber, you can't really do anything with the body, at least without like Verte in the game. So like we ended up running basically all the names except for like the green guy, aka Pan, and Urgula at one. So, and that was a pretty good. I was feeling really confident into the event with that kind of build, because I was doing well on DB, went from like 0 to 700. It's nothing impressive, obviously, but I was at least feeling good about the build. And like a few like the night or two before, the build just ended up just not. I don't know if I was burning out on just how much I was playing the game, but essentially the build just wasn't feeling good for me. So I made a last second decision, and I changed up the build to one of my more early builds, which is like more reminiscent of those OCG builds where you're running only a few Dracotail names in order to just like prop up the branded cards effectively for helping them board break. And honestly, the engines just fit together so well, in my opinion. There's like a clean bridge from the branded fusion, obviously, and then there's also a bridge from Dracotail cards if you run the Trishula fusion contact fusion, or it's not contact fusion, but if you know that card, there's actually a fun bridge that we ended up finding out in one of my testing groups. And uh, so essentially, I ended up going to the smaller build. It was like 3 Rahu, 1 Ketu, plus like 1 Malulu, because that's like an engine requirement between bridging, obviously, and then Urgula, I think, is also plus Femina, are also just great cards. I ended up running 2 Femina. I just think that card is so custom. I think that's like probably the best Dracotail card, honestly. Like I know Altharion is obviously the other broken Dracotail card. Being able to dump your whole hand is really nuts, but at least for branded's purpose, I feel like it's just one of them. It's a card I wish like I had wanted in the past for branded, like a quick play like monster or ecclesia in hand that could just polymerization in the main phase, and that's what we got out of there. And it's like highly searchable. So that's where there's multiple different layers to the interactions, and why I believe it's one of the better Draco Tal variants. I think it's like kind of bearing out right now that like the K9 and like the Shadal variants are quite consistent in their ability to do well. But I think out of the first 2 weeks, there's been 3 branded Dracotail tops. And if you don't include like the Jesse Cotton construction with Cartesias, I don't really consider that branded Dracotail, but it like more my vibe. So I do think the deck has chops, considering branded was kind of struggling before that. And it's just finding out the correct build. So I ended up switching to that skinny build, and then entered into the regional just to get testing in effectively for that build. And I ended up already coming in with a deck list error. I always end up doing this. The last regional, I also had a deck list error for the remote, so I just have to get better at actually like making sure my names are all set. But I ended up running the Shadal package. That's been something I've been a bit huge fan of in the side deck, is like a board breaking package, running 3 Shadal Fusion plus a Shadal Grista, plus, you have the Urgula in the main deck. As the fire target, so a Shadal Fusion effectively gets you a board broken and at least a non-target pop it with the spell or trap. And then also I run a Shadal Dragon to pop another back row, because that like really is great against like whether it's Yummy or VS K9 if they have multiple sets, or definitely it's great against Draco Tale because they always have those 2 traps, and that's like something I'm considering with my deck building a lot of the time. So that package had like overperformed in my testing, and I just didn't have the Grista in my extra deck. So I had 4 dead side deck cards, and then also I just switching to a new build. I hadn't actually like labbed out the side or the side patterns enough. Like I ran 6 Mulcharmy, and Branded's not effectively a hand trap deck, so a lot of the time I want to have like things to side out. The Mulcharmy's going first, like you have a lot of going first sides in the side deck, just to be able to have a board that isn't going to get broken, or just playing through hand traps. And I didn't have good, I take pride with my deck building and my side patterns, and that was just like one of the negatives of switching to a new build beforehand. But that's the preamble. And I ended up going in, and I ended up going, what was it, X22 by round, I believe it was 7. So, or no, it was round 6. Yeah, so I was in until the end of round 6. So it was nothing impressive. I tied twice. It was just another one of those things where it's kind of funny because the remote regionals are 50 minutes, and I guess it's because remote regionals take a bit longer in theory, but it's still a prep for the new time rules we're apparently getting. I mean, we'll see. I'm actually curious of your opinion on those time rules, but it's one of those things I have to learn how to play, I guess, faster. And it's a new build, like branded Draco Tale. Sometimes just like the line, you just have to make like an educated guess or on the line without taking too long, kind of thing. And I felt like I was playing well. It was just I think the build wasn't it, and then also the side patterns really didn't help my case. Like, whether it's just like the 2 games I played into time, like those are situations that were definitely in my control that I could have played out of, and that would have like kept me in the running for my top. And then also, the so yeah, I mean, that's just kind of how my regional experience went. It was a good learning experience in terms of just like getting the testing in. I'm currently like I updated the skinny branded build, and I also have a larger Dracotail build. I'm actually much more leaning towards the skinny Dracotail or Dracotail build, because like at the regional I had been like maining Book of Eclipse, and Book of Eclipse to me just felt like super weak. I don't know if you ever tested Book of Eclipse or really have thoughts on that card as a non-engine piece in people's decks. As you said, it's a board breaker format. So I ended up thinking, Book of Eclipse, I have 3 Lubers in my deck. Like, I'm going to dodge every impermanent in the world. And I just didn't even see Book of Eclipse. To be fair, I'm on 60, but like when I saw Book of Eclipse going, I didn't see Book of Eclipse going first, but when I did going second, it was just not enough. Like I went against a Yummy Fiendsmith player. Book of Eclipse just wasn't doing anything there. If I had Super Poly there, I would have just won that on the spot. There was a lot of situations where if I just had a Dark Ruler or a Super Poly instead of the Book of Eclipse in hand going second, I just completely break the board. So that just like was a good like thing to figure out for the deck, frankly. And also the other thing I found out was just like getting into these grind games with good players, because I think regionals are the best testing. Like I think you said that like once to me. So like it's one of those things that like you'll get into grind games more often, I think, in regionals and like YCSs, because they just know their shit. You're not gonna have an easy time. You're not just gonna get away with murder. So like um it's one of those things that I actually like found out why I needed for the grind game. Like I was only running 1 Mirror Jade and no other monster with like a staying power, like an effect that provides like pressure on my opponent. Like effectively I only had reactive fusion monsters, and an all fusion deck, it needs to be a bit more toolbox than that. And like obviously the Draco Tale cards just take up so much space. It's just like I just found out I had to at least like run like a Borreload Furious Dragon to have like an ability to like rotate. Like once my Mirror Jade is toast, like I could rotate into that and things like that. And I just didn't, so that came up too. So it was a good learning experience. Honestly, just like what I kind of expected out of week one, but get those like those missteps out of the way. But yeah, no, I don't know if you had any like thoughts on kind of like Book of Clips, the time rules, or kind of just like what I was talking about with like Draco Tale. Because I don't know, did you test Draco Tale at all?
Yeah, I played all of the different decks. Honestly, from the beginning, I was never actually going to play any of them because I just think so highly of Blue Eyes that like my mind was already truthfully made up by the time I actually tested any of those decks. I really fell in love with Blue Eyes the first time I played it. Like I literally the first time I played it, I enjoyed it so much. Actually, James, who's going to Worlds next weekend, he was my roommate for Nets. It was just the two of us, and we did all of our testing for Nets together. And he had convinced me to play it. And at first he was like, "Yo, try the Blue Eyes deck out." And I was like, "No, I'm not playing that deck. Deck's bad." And he's like, "Just try it." And I was like, "Well, I'm not playing it. It's not it's not worth my time. Just like I'm not doing it." And he was like, "Listen, please, as a friend, I agree. You're not gonna play it. Will you just draw some hands with it?" And I drew some hands and ended up loving it so much that I played all night long. And then a case tournament that I had like a deck I was going to play for the next day, I completely changed my mind, played the Blue Eyes deck instead that I had played for at this point like hours. Like I had played it for like maybe 6 hours and just like that was it. And I like stayed up all night just playing it and then never slept and played the it was a one of the Kong's cards tournaments and top aided with it with having never played it before. And I knew immediately that the deck was definitely just like the deck I was going to want to continue playing moving forward. And every single week I've played it since has just proven to me that it's even better than I thought it was the week before. It's the best deck I've ever played. And I think it's like super special. Like I think it's like a deck I'm not going to take for granted because you don't get opportunities like that often that you have a deck that is like genuinely just like that good. That being said, I just felt I had to play all the new decks because I needed to be able to play against them. The Yummy deck didn't impress me that much. I liked the one card combo aspect. First of all, I thought K9 Vanquish Soul was just a brickfest mess. That deck was like I couldn't even really stomach playing it. It was like I just hated every second of it. Like I feel like I got through like 5 games of it and just like it was just hard to actually sit and play that deck. I despised every second of playing the deck. It felt like a bricky mess. It felt like you needed way too much to be going right. Those kind of decks are just not for me. I liked the one card starter aspect of Yummy, which was like good, but I thought like its combos were like not that great. Like I was like, if you just get Dark Roller, you just get smacked. Like that just seems weird to me because people are obviously going to catch on to that. It also like the Yummy deck just wasn't super impressive to me. Everything was little. Like it felt like they just had like huge flaws, like super serious flaws. The Draco Tale deck I maybe liked the best, but I didn't. The things I didn't like about it were, and this is really nothing against the deck. I think it was like maybe just like a personal preference thing. It was kind of some of the similar issues that I felt like I had with the Melodious deck, which are issues that most Yu-Gi-Oh decks have, in fairness. But it was like if you just trade into their interruptions, oftentimes they will just pass and never come back. Like that was what kind of had happened when I played against Jesse. I played against Jesse Cotton in the finals of that case tournament, and he was playing the Draco Tale deck, and I went first, and he hand trapped me 3 times, and like I like summoned Barrel, and he impermed it, and then I went into the link 1, got the field spell, summoned Sage, he ashed it, and then I still summoned a Spirit Dragon because the deck just pushes really well through hand traps, and he nibbed at the end phase. The thing was though, is like he just traded his nib into just like my 2 Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Like he only traded into 2 cards, so I still played 18 hand traps and had interruptions. He then
Yeah.
went first after using 3 cards. He opened 2 starter cards. He opened Lucaeus, and I impermed it. And then he had one of the spell cards. I don't remember which one it was, but I remember ashing, and he had to pass it over to me. And then I just got barrel back in the standby phase, and like I still had a card after that, but then like also got barrel back for drill beam, and I knew he just passed, which meant he really doesn't have extenders. So I'm just going to remove his field, and now like this drill beam's going to trade into whatever he draws for turn. The game's over. Felt like that was similar problems to when I had with Melodious. Was like I would activate Ostinato and sometimes get ashed, and then summon a refrain and get impermed, and it was like I now had to top deck into another starter. That was really frustrating because sometimes there's nothing you could do about your opponent opening cards like that, or just opening like good trading cards. And that was something that turned me off a little bit because that was the whole reason I left Melodious in the first place. Was that like if people are just playing heavy hand traps, you will sometimes get traded into and then not be able to come back, especially into the wrong deck. So that was like a little bit of the qualm I had with it and why it was hard to just like, why would I like it was hard to justify why I'm playing that instead of Blue Eyes because Blue Eyes trades super effectively, where I thought that like it didn't trade the same way, and every time I played against it with Blue Eyes, I just ended up beating it pretty dominantly because I thought that like Imperm Valor trade into both of the normal summons pretty well. Lucaeus and the Fusion guy, they both obviously trade into. I thought Ash was incredible against it, and then I also thought Dominus Purge was really good into the other spell card. Um, Obviously Femena is incredible. But then I also was like siding deltas, and I thought Fool was good into it, so um it was just not a deck that I was going to switch into. But of the 3 decks, I thought it was my favorite, mostly just because I thought Femena was absolutely crazy. And I thought I liked its activation requirement a lot better than Azuna. Because, like, Azuna, you have to do something in order for Azuna to be able to be activatable. And you can play intelligently as a Yu-Gi-Oh player to just like play around Azuna or not play into Azuna at all, right? Like the Yummy deck isn't going to play into it. Where like if you open Femena, straight up it's going to be strong no matter what. And like I thought that deck wanted to play hand traps the most, and like of the 3 decks, if I had no choice but to play one of them, if it was Pokemon and you had to pick one of the starters, for sure I'd be playing Draco Tale.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that's totally fair. No, that's why I think it kind of almost like it felt like everybody picked up Draco Tale last week. Like all the cards ended up like doubling in price, and I just saw like everybody locally running Draco Tale, and I heard similar like anecdotes, from other like Yu-Gi-Oh communities. And you got sneak preview of Jesse Cotton before he top aided with the deck and ended up beating him in the finals of that case tournament with Blue Eyes, which once again shows you guys like this is kind of like why I'm running Branded too, because I feel like Branded has like a great matchup into regular Draco Tale. Like the best thing they can do against me is like make a Winda and I don't draw like non-engine basically, essentially. But like I'm outing the Secretarion with ease, and then also with my deck already running things like Super Poly, and then just the fact that that deck has like 3 good pushes, and if you're running Draco Tale Branded, that means you have an additional like few pushes on top of the pushes that you're already trading with them. Obviously, then they have hand traps, but the branded cards, in my opinion, if you just like deck build like correctly, like whether it's like with Thrust or with doing Cartesia, Quem, basically secondary win cons, like you can. It's pretty well into hand traps if you just know what you're doing. So that's why I've been trying to break that build, because I wasn't like too big of a fan actually of the same like when I played pure Draco Tale, I just didn't like the fact that like I had to like how I traded a hand traps, because they are also engine at the end of the day. Like you need hand traps in order to Altharion, or like in your hand in order to Altharion on your opponent's turn. Obviously you have the traps, but like if you're already getting hand trapped, then you don't always get to those traps. So it's just one of those things I wasn't like too big of a fan. I actually like would, and you can't really run board breakers in that version, but you can run branded, and which like has the engine to go on top of it. And I don't know, I've just been breaking boards with engine more than I since more than I have since having 3 branded fusion, because like it's kind of what I was alluding to before. Like branded just needed, in my opinion, more like power spells essentially, because your only power spell now is like 1 branded fusion. Like unless you run the branded in white, which I highly recommend for people playing branded. But the so it just like gives us more power spells in order to keep pushing into the engine. And outside of just like fully capped like VSK9 boards, like I've broken fully capped like Draco Tale boards, fully capped Yummy boards with like multiple times with these. I feel like the Yummy matchup, like it typically goes 2-0 for me, as long as I'm not going against like that Fiendsmith version. I lose die roll effectively. But and that's why I'm changing the deck build and having super poly, because I like, once again, I just, that's why I love branded. I get to board break with these, and that's what these Draco Tale cards help with. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Draco Tale. But like, what did you think like Book of Eclipse was like strong in your testing, or maybe like in the wild from what you've seen, or are you not a big fan of Book of Eclipse this format?
So I had tested it. I played it at the OTS, which I topped as well. I actually haven't missed ones with Blue Eyes of like at least getting either Worlds points or topping any event I've went to, whether it be case tournaments or anything. Anything I've played with Blue Eyes, I've had like a good result at. But I did play Book of Eclipse at it. I didn't I didn't like it personally, but I do think that those kind of things are difficult sometimes too. The like sometimes I want to make YouTube videos on like things like that, but I and we've talked about this before where it's like it's really tough to say, because like when people are like, oh, the best tech cards of the format, it's like that is like the best tech cards are going to be based on what deck you're playing and what that strategy is, and like how you look at the game and things, and like really what you're trying to do. So like I didn't like Book of Eclipse, but like I felt like one of the bigger reasons I didn't like Book of Eclipse is because I don't believe in board breakers that much. You've known me for almost, we've known each other 6, 7, 8 year, 10 year, almost 10 years. I've never been a fan of board breakers. I don't believe in them. I don't think that it's a real it's not a strategy I would ever play. I would never play a board breaker deck. Just for me personally, I realize people have succeeded with it. So like I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just not that's not me. That's one of the things I love about Blue Eyes. It main decks 18 hand traps. So like if I'm main decking 18 hand traps, why would I be siding into a few board breakers? Like that additional hand trap could have just traded into their combo and completely stopped them. And like that's why it sometimes is tough to like say like, oh, the best cards of this format, because the best cards for one deck may not be the best for another deck, because decks operate a lot differently, right? Like your branded Draco Tale deck is just setting up a completely different kind of interruption than my deck is. Where like your deck may not put up a single negate. So like it might suck more if your opponent top decks a fusion card like that, the Draco Tale fusion that like sends one from deck, like that may end up spiraling harder out of control than like if I stop my opponent with hand traps and take over the game, my opponent can never come back because I set up multiple omni negates. Oh, every single one like of the combos, whether or not it's just the Primite cards or just the Blue Eyes cards, is simply only setting up the omni negates, right? Like barrels and loads and friends are just setting up drill beam, which is just going to negate my opponent's next cards. And like I spirit for Ultimate Dragon oftentimes in the draw phase after I've passed my opponent, and it just like I play 2 Ultimate for that reason, because the entire premise of the deck is to like stop my opponent and then just set up omni negates and they can never come back. So I think that that's like one of the difficult things is like if that's the way that I'm playing the deck, then like I think that Book of Eclipse was never going to work for me. Where maybe it worked better for somebody else in my testing, didn't like it. But I think maybe in the right deck it could be better. But if you're saying you played it with board breakers and it didn't work that well, like I'm
It
not
didn't feel like a
completely
real board
surprised.
breaker. It felt like, in my opinion, the good board breakers are the ones that take away agency from your opponent. That's why I think Super Poly and Droplet have always been like the premier board breakers. I think Dark Ruler has gotten a lot worse because of cards like Drill Beam and Desiree. being in the game. So it's one of those things that like, and also the Draco Tale flame and stuff. I mean, I guess like you never side in that against that deck, but that's besides the point. So no, and that's also very interesting that you talked about a scenario that comes up like honestly, and you articulated it better than me, but effectively like, one of those things that actually are very strong into branded, because you don't have too many negates outside of like a Mercurier, which is effectively an effect negate, and then you do have branded retribution, which is an omni summon negate. But the thing is that you usually use that to get to your one branded fusion nowadays, and it's then banished. So you can't always, or you won't always want to even end on it, because there's like branded and red, which like insulates and also facilitates like way more interruptions anyways. But like retribution is like still just like the A tier thing to go against, like to set into that deck. But also that's why I've been recommending people to be on the Ido lock, because there's not a lot of people running. I mean, I think there were a lot of people running Droplet at the beginning of the format, but I think like I think people will probably stay on Droplet, but I think like as people like, it's just not great into Herald. So I feel like as a board breaker, it feels really awkward this format if you're having to give up your hand advantage in order to like, especially when like Yummy just won a YCS. I'm not sure if like our Droplet's going to continue to be in everyone's deck, but like with that being said, like that's why like Ido just like it is your one-stop shop for like the Draco Tale matchup, because you can just idle lock them in the draw phase before they can go main phase, like Femina, Rahu, or Ketu, which all demand responses, which we don't run Ash Blossom. So like I've been seeing some branded decks actually run Ash Blossom, and to me it's just like, why don't you run the Ido that you can just tutor out through your engine on top of your normal combo line instead of running an unsearchable hand trap? But that's just me. But yeah, no, like were there are there any thoughts like going into next week? What events are you going to be doing next week, Wiz, and maybe just like do you kind of I mean, I guess we do have Worlds coming up. Are you going to be doing any streams for like Worlds, or any, or should people be looking forward to content coming, or what kind of content should people be looking forward to from you?
Yeah, for sure. So I definitely am going to be looking to get back to doing um, more streams. I'm definitely going to stream Worlds Weekend. I'm super excited for James. We've been talking every day. He's actually been in China for the last 3 weeks, so
Oh
we haven't
wow.
been able to test as much. But we've still been talking every day, and I've been keeping him like up to date with what the format's looking like. Obviously, Worlds a little bit different, but up with the World Celebration this upcoming weekend. I'm going to the Toronto Regional on Saturday, and then I'm going to the South Park Regional on Sunday. So just another double regional. That's not going to stop. That's going to be every single weekend. If I'm not going to be at a YCS, I will be playing exactly 2 regionals. I plan on being first in Worlds points, and I am not going to allow anything to stop me from doing that. When I get super committed to something, I mean, you know how I am with things. Like it sometimes get too like aggressively focused on them, but I can't help
You
it.
get
It's
locked in.
it's
Like
just
you're gonna be a
it's
scary
just who I
force out
am.
there.
It's like if I find something like the night before that tournament, I was just like I'll just not sleep, and I'll just like I actually didn't sleep. I didn't sleep between Saturday and Sunday regional because I was driving home. The regional didn't let out until 9 p.m. and I drove alone. So like I drove myself home all night long, and by the time I got home, it was like if I sleep, I had to wake up at 1 a.m. to drive to the regional. So I went to sleep at 7 p.m., woke up at 1 a.m., drove all night to the regional, played the regional all day until 9 p.m., and then drove home all night, didn't sleep, and then just played the remote regional on top 8 of that day. Um, so like that is something
48
I'm just
hour
doing,
live
just
streams paying
grinding.
off, dude. It gives you that
Yeah,
stamina.
yeah, literally. I genuinely do think it does. Like those like that like long like grindy things help me to like still play good when it like when you're not in the best conditions, right? Like you're not gonna be in the best conditions in almost any state, right? Like sometimes you're gonna be sick, sometimes you're gonna be this, but like if you can just play good no matter what the situation is, then like it doesn't matter how you wake up feeling that day or like whatever is the situation. Like I think about this. I lost the last round, and my opponent took eighth, and then I took what was it 9 29th, I think, in the regional on Saturday. Like that cost me 20 worlds points losing that last round. And then I drove home alone for 6 hours after losing 20 world's points, being up for 6 straight hours. Like that sucks. But yeah, like you just had to get it, you just have to get it together and keep a good attitude, just be happy with what we got and move it on to the next one. Like there's always going to be a frustrating situation. Josh Cotton talks all the time about how he lost in top 8 of NEWCQ to go to Worlds on just like a super big choke moment. Don't quote this, but because I know that there's going to be a million people in the comments who know exactly what the situation was, but I think him and his opponent were playing Burning Abyss Mirrors and they swapped decks on accident in the middle of the match, and it like somehow cost Jesse Cotton to lose.
Oh my gosh.
In top 8 of NAWCQ, figure he wins that match and he just goes to Worlds. So like that's like that haunts him to this day, even though how many things has he done? But it's just like you just get over it. That's like a big thing for at tournaments. Like sometimes people just take a loss and then just get like super frustrated or like whatever the situation may be. But no matter how good or bad the events go, I'm just gonna keep. I mean, last week I ended up being pretty good. I mean, I got 30-some points and got to 90 Worlds points. I mean, I know 380 points made it to the Worlds points playoffs this year, and we are about a month in, and I have 90. So
It's pretty good.
Pretty good. Yeah, it's on my pretty good pace to do pretty well this year. So I'm just gonna try to keep it up. I'm gonna try to take exactly first place at every event I play and try to just keep making my deck better. Like that's kind of what I always tell myself before the events, and was like a good thing that you were alluding to with like what you had done. It's just like having a good attitude no matter what. Like even though I've gotten like good worlds points at everything I've played so far, like if I played this entire weekend and didn't get a single point and just like things went astray, I would just sit down with the deck that I have faith in, regardless of how the events go, and I would think about what happened and think about how I could have played better, what I would have adjusted for the deck, and then I would just change that moving forward. And like that's just the best way of like the reasons the drill beams were in my deck for this weekend was because I noticed the influx of it the weekend before, right? And then you just change so on and so forth depending on what you've seen and what's happened. So 2 more regionals this weekend. I'm super excited for those. I think that those are going to be really fun. Hopefully, I can get back in the saddle and do some streams. Honestly, part of the reason I've been missing streams is I just have not felt like grinding DB at the same rate as I did before. I've also been really tired after the regional weekends, which is part of why I wanted to do the podcast on Tuesdays if possible, just because like I have weekends like last weekend where I wake up at 1 a.m. on Saturday, don't sleep at all, and then play till 9 p.m. Sunday, and I'm like locked in all weekend. And then I live with my girlfriend, who I then like I have not seen all weekend and am spending some time with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like I ended up till probably midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning last night, or Sunday night. Slept, and then Monday I was just like beat, and I try to
And you
have
work
a
full time, so like that's a huge the dedication you show to this game while also like still keeping up the hustle, the family life. It's very impressive to like to still be performing. So I don't know, you're just like it's definitely inspirational. Like when I see people like you or like Sean Pittman, like I know Sean Pittman, he works like 12-hour shifts too, like and has a family. I know Ruben, like he like that man works like 40 plus hours a week. Like he hustles, like pack same. So it's just like that stuff is impressive, and I think everyone's looking forward to what you do this year, because it's gonna be very good to see you up there in the world stage. So yeah, man, I'm looking forward to doing the rest of this podcast. I'm doing the remote regional next week, so
heck yeah.
yeah, so look out for that, guys. Gonna be testing on DB all week for that, and adjusting the build. Been very happy with the current build, so uh just really locked in on the TCG. I do think it's a great format, honestly. Like I've heard that from a lot of people, like for different reasons, but I'm very much, this is like my favorite format that I've been playing in since probably like Pope format. Like I don't even know, like, and that was really because it was the first format I came back to. I have like fond memories of it. But yeah, no, it's a good time, and guys, we'll look forward to it. We'll have this podcast every Tuesday, so we record it on Tuesday, and I mean you can watch it live some weeks over on Prophecy Wiz's Twitch, of course, but Then also I will be uploading it as a VOD every week. So make sure to check out Prophecy Wiz's channel, please. It's over on YouTube at Prophecy Wiz, and then also on Twitch and also Twitter, right? You're on Twitter, X technically. So
Yeah, technically, I mean, I don't even have it downloaded on my phone at the moment. Ironically, I do know socials. Like, I post like my YouTube videos on Facebook, but I download it on the day that I am gonna post the video. I post it in like the certain channels, like the Blue Eyes group and Zodiac, and then I delete Facebook. So I try not to be on any social medias. Life is just so busy. I just don't have time for those. But I do have time for YouTube and all the other things. Just trying to keep everything centered, man. It's like you said, life is so, work full time. I have family, like I have a lot of stuff going on, but you just make sacrifices where you can, and you commit to what's important. So
yeah, man.
that's something super important is like all of the just work, family, and Yu-Gi-Oh is very important to me as well.
Yeah, no, respect, and it's gonna be great to see like where we're at like 8 months from now. It's like because
Mhm.
this is the first podcast where basically it's gonna be a cool little progression that we have here. So hope everyone enjoyed that, and please let us know down in the comments some questions that we could answer during the next podcast. So we'll keep that interactive from week to week, and we'll also be if you guys want us to cover certain things, please let us know. This will be a week to week podcast, so we can always cater to those things. I mean, if there's
Mhm.
like news, obviously there should be a ban list within the next month, so we'll definitely have to have a big podcast once the ban list comes out. So look forward to that. But yeah, guys, thanks for checking out the podcast if you made it this far. And once again, check out Prophecy was his channel. Subscribe also and leave a like on the video if you haven't. Comment down below. And with that being said, we'll be seeing you guys later.